Hello class, welcome to Pre-Algebra Lesson 4-6, which is all about solving simple interest problems. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to apply percent reasoning to solve simple interest problems. So let's quickly talk before we jump into the first example. What is interest? Okay, so this is a great question you could ask your parents. They would be able to give you some very concrete examples that apply to your family's life specifically. But just a general explanation about what interest is. We often look at interest when it's always going to apply to money, and usually it is in reference to taking out like a loan to buy something. Maybe you don't have enough money for whatever it is that you need to buy, whether it's a car or maybe a house or going to college. You might need to take out a loan. And the way that you're able to borrow that money is you pay something called interest, meaning you pay back all of the money you borrowed and a specific percentage of that. You're going to pay that specific percentage more than what you borrowed. Okay, so just to be really, really simplistic, if we were to say that we are talking about $100 loan, you would likely never take out a loan for $100. But let's say you took out a $100 loan and it was a 5% interest rate. That means that you would end up paying back $105. It would eventually cost you an extra $5 to borrow that 100. But people do it because sometimes you just don't have all of the money you need at a specific time. Okay? On the flip side, a more fun example of interest is when you earn interest. And you might be wondering, how do you earn interest? And the way you earn interest is often like just a very simple example. There are more than this. Would just be a savings account. Okay, savings account usually have set percent interest and your account is going to continue just earning that money for keeping it in the bank. And the reason you earn that money is because then that money, well, it's always there and accessible to you, it allows other people to borrow that money. Okay, so when you take out a loan, you're kind of helping pay the interest for someone else. Okay, all right. Hopefully that kind of answers maybe some initial questions you have about, well, what is interest? Why are we doing this? But if you have more questions, like I said, maybe talk to your parents. It's a great conversation to have, or I'm happy to talk with you more in depth. But example 1, find simple interest. So Victoria opens a savings account with a deposit of $300. So something to just help you guys remember, I know this is not always a word you know. Deposit means to put money into the bank. Okay, and she will earn 1.6% simple interest each year on her money. How much interest will she earn over 5 years? And this is assuming she does not add or take out any money. And we're going to make that assumption on everything today. Okay, I know that's not a super realistic example, but the reason we're doing that is because we want you to learn this concept before we try to do too many things at once. Okay, so looking at that little picture right over there, we have some important vocab. The initial amount deposited is called the principal. Okay, so the principal amount is whatever you deposit. In this case, our principal is going to be $300. Okay, and then the interest that is applied to the initial amount only, and that'll be important in future math classes and future lessons. But the interest applied to the initial amount is called simple interest. Okay, so when we're doing these problems, 1.6%, we are still going to convert them to our decimals. Okay, so I'm going to do that quickly. Now, what do we do to solve this? Well, what we do is we figure out, well, how much interest would she earn in 1 year? And then we're just going to multiply it by 5. So with that in mind, we have our interest equals, and then I'm going to do the interest rate, or the percent, times the principal. Okay, so another way of looking at that, our interest in dollars is represented as the part, and then the principal represents the whole. And I just want to put that out there to help you make connections. Okay, so I'm going to just use X for interest, and then our percent is 0.016, and our principal is 300. If I were to type that into a calculator, I would find out that that is $4.80 per year. So then I would take that $4.80 and multiply it by 5 years to discover she will earn $24 just for leaving her money in the bank. Okay, so that is an example of simple interest. Hopefully you see the connections to what we've been doing, but if not, please ask questions. And here's another problem where I want you to try this problem on your own. Okay, Victoria has another account at the bank that pays 2.5% simple interest. How much interest will she earn in 8 years on an initial deposit of $250, assuming she neither adds to nor withdraws from the account? Good luck. All right, when you solved that problem, hopefully you figured out that she earned $6.25 per year in interest, and then multiplied that by 8 to get a total of $50 of interest over the 8 years. If you didn't get that, and my explanation didn't make sense, please reach out for some help. I'm happy to help you. Let's look at example 2. What if we know the dollar amounts, but we're trying to figure out what the percent of interest is? How do we do that? Well, we are going to look at it this way. The interest amount, okay, so that's kind of like what we were just solving for, right? How much she earned in interest. Okay, so that interest amount is equal to the interest rate, or that percent, times, and then for this problem, we're talking about a loan. So I'm just going to write loan. And I recognize my brain is jumping ahead. I didn't even read this problem. I do that a lot. I'm sorry. Thank you for being patient with me. All right, so we're going to find the percent of interest. So we have Maya's older sister got a loan to buy a used car for $3,400. What is the interest rate on the loan? And if I look over at this picture right here, and I'm actually going to maybe try to make that a little bit bigger, because that's pretty small. We have this little magazine here where it tells us that if we were to borrow $3,400 for this car today, we would only pay $8.50 in interest every month. Okay, so this one, they're trying to be a little sneaky, which advertisements do, so please pay attention. Okay, so $8.50 is how much she earns, or how much she has to pay in interest every month. Now, if you think back to the last problem we did, we always talked about it in terms of years. Okay? That's because when you're doing this simple interest stuff, it has to be in years. So that means I have to figure out $8.50 times 12. That is going to be $102 of interest every year. And that is the number I need to use. So I'm going to say $102 equals, and then that percent times, we're told that she borrowed the $3,400. So I'm going to do 102 divided by 3,400. And when I do that, I get 0.03, which tells me that the interest rate she got was 3%. Okay, so the big takeaway I need you to get from this problem, because it is pretty similar to what we've been doing, is that this interest amount needs to be in years. Okay, now question 2, so this one's for you. Another company will lend Maya's older sister $4,000. Every month she would pay $11.88 in interest. What is the interest rate rounded to the nearest tenth of a percent for 1 year? Okay, so you want to figure out what is that interest rate. Good luck. All right, for this problem, hopefully you first converted the monthly interest to yearly by multiplying $11.88 by 12. So you found out that she would pay a total of $142.56 in interest. And then you used that dollar amount and divided it by the total loan amount, which was $4,000. When you did that, you should have gotten 0.03564 as the percent, or as the decimal, and converting that to a percent would be 3.564%. And since it asked me to round to the nearest tenth, that's one decimal place. So this 6 would increase that 5, and that's how I got 3.6% as the interest rate. Okay. If you have any questions about that problem, please be sure to ask for some help. I'm happy to help you. We have one more example for today. So now we're talking about finding the principal amount, or the starting amount. Okay, so we have Jake opened a savings account that earns 1.5% interest. Jake estimates that, assuming he neither adds to nor withdraws from his account, he assumes he will earn $240 interest after 10 years. So how much did Jake deposit when he opened the account? Okay, so the way that we do this is, again, thinking about our problem and what we've been doing. So the interest amount is always in relation to 1 year, right? And that's equal to the percent times the principal, or the starting amount. Okay, now if I think about this, it's going to be really tempting to type in 240 equals 0.015 times x, or p, whatever you want to use. But you have to be careful, because this $240 is earned in 10 years. So I have to convert that first. So I'm going to say 240 divided by 10 tells me that Jake is earning $24 in interest each year. Okay, so I'm going to use 24 in this spot. And then 1.5% as a decimal, 0.015 times, and then our principal, or starting amount. And what I need to do is 24. I'm going to divide by that decimal in order to get the principal amount. And when I divide, I end up with $1,600 as the principal amount. So I would say Jake deposited $1,600. And that right there would be my final answer. Okay? If you have any questions about that, please be sure to ask for some help. I would say the biggest mistake, or the most common mistake I'm going to see people make, is forgetting to convert from 10 years down to 1 year. This is the last question. I want you to solve this one on your own. Caitlin's older brother borrowed money for school. He took out a loan that charges 6% simple interest. He will end up paying $720 in interest after 6 years. How much did Caitlin's brother borrow for school? So go ahead and solve this one on your own. Good luck. All right, for this problem, hopefully you started by taking the total amount in interest and dividing by the number of years. So 720 divided by 6. That means he's paying $120 in interest every year. And if we did 120 equals 0.06 times that missing dollar amount, we can solve. So 120 divided by 0.06 leaves me with 2,000. So that means that Caitlin's older brother borrowed $2,000. Okay, if you have questions about that, please be sure to reach out for some help. And here is your last slide, the key concept. It has a nice color-coded example or like picture to help you conceptualize and visualize this type of problem, okay? If you have questions on this or anything else from the lesson, please reach out for some help. I'm happy to help you. Have a great day.